Welcome. This video is going to walk you through how to do an integrity test. Now, the integrity of your files has to do with having all of the components on the coding end that are needed for a record to display or a record to be accessible within the system. And the other part of the integrity tests have to do with whether or not they're accessible from either direction. What I mean by that is that your inventory and your AR are in like a necklace chain. And so when I'm moving through the necklace chain from one record to another, I can even show you an example here. So I'm going to go to a Wix 51515. When I press my F2 key, it's going to take me to the next record in my inventory. Now, whether that inventory has been sorted by the description, whether it's been sorted by the part number, whether it's been sorted by my bin location, I want to make sure that when I press my F2 key, it goes to the next appropriate number. When I press my F1 key to go backwards, I want it to go through the same series on this necklace chain. You might find occasionally that when you press the F2 key to go forward and then the F1 key to go backwards, you're seeing different parts. Not only that, we've had customers who have called occasionally. They're trying to do an inventory update of some sort and they seem to get stuck on a part, or they're trying to process a ticket and it seems to be stuck. So what that means to us, or what the first step that we would do, was to check your integrity tests to see if there was an integrity error. Now, you don't need all of that description, but you will be instructed occasionally to go and check your integrity test by SBC personnel. Now, we can do this for you, and we can do it during the day. You don't need to kick anybody out of the system because all we're doing is reading through the file. But you might want to do this on your own before you do an inventory count, before your end of month, because you're noticing a problem and you want to try to figure out what the issue is by yourself before calling us. So to do an integrity test, you're going to start by going into your system utilities, menu selection Y, and then there are a couple of different places that I can go to do my integrity tests, and it's basically taking me to the same program. So I'm going to start by going into number 9, my Universal File Utilities. Once I get there, letter C is my integrity checks. I'm going to click on that. So the first thing that you're going to see is a screen that looks like this, and there's an X in front of one of 4 tests. Now, these 4 tests do different things to check the integrity of your file. So typically, we'd want to put an X in front of each one unless you've been instructed to only do a certain test. So I'm going to press my X key on my keyboard so that there's an X in front of all 4 tests, and then my instructions at the bottom tell me to press Control W to go to the next screen. Now, on the next screen, you may or may not see the same menu, not menus, but the same files as I do here. This is only going to show me a list of the files that I actually have open. So inventory and AR are obviously open, but then other types of files, perhaps order entry versus point of sale, so it may or may not be open. So you might see some different options than I see here. In your upper left-hand corner, do you want to run this through the batch? Now, if you're going to run something like your inventory, and your inventory has 1 million+ parts in it, you're absolutely going to want to say run this through the batch, because if you do that, then you're not going to lock up your computer while this is running through these tests. If you don't care that it locks up your machine, and by locks up means just keeps it busy, you can go ahead and say batch process no, and just know that if you have anything that needs to be done immediately, you're going to want to run to another terminal. Stores to test. If you have store-specific files, this is going to give you the opportunity to only check the store that you're in need of testing. So if you are a multi-store scenario and you're only having problems at one location, you can enter that store's identifier, and then you'll be able to run the test for only that location. Hard copy C. Now, the options here are yes, C as in Charlie, and no. Yes is going to print a paper copy. Now, the only thing that I have to say about using a hard copy yes is if you're printing to paper, you're going to want to stick around the printer and make sure that all of a sudden half of your inventory doesn't print out. If you did a big price update and you imported new records, occasionally you'll run an inventory integrity check and you'll get 10,000 errors. Those 10,000 errors really aren't a big deal. These errors are like mosquito bites. They're not a big deal. They're just kind of interrupting what you're doing during the day, but you're not losing any information and there's nothing detrimental happening. But you don't want 10,000 line items to print out on 1,000 pieces of paper. So if you all of a sudden start getting a bunch of pieces of paper, if you've said hard copy yes, you're going to want to cancel the job and call us or run it to the screen so you don't waste a bunch of paper. Hard copy C is going to put the results of the report right on your screen. Hard copy no is actually going to give me a listing of all of the information. Now the difference between C and no is that if you say hard copy C, it lists all the information and it doesn't flip past it. If I was to say hard copy no and then run an integrity check on every single file in this listing, some of them would fall off of my screen if I wasn't watching what was happening. So you just want to pay attention. And then top of form at file. Do you want to change and have a page break between the results of every single file? Now, if you have no errors, this is going to give you a bunch of pieces of paper that are telling you no errors. So you might not want to do that. But we do give you the option to do this if perhaps you're printing this to a file, which is an option. You can also say hard copy yes and print to a file printer. I'm going to press my enter key. I have a ton of parts in my inventory, like somewhere around 3 million. I am not going to run that one for this example. But I'm going to choose ARF, and I'll choose a couple more here so that you can get the idea of what kind of information that you're going to want to see. Typically, you would come in and you would know which test that you're going to run the integrities for because you're having a problem in that file. If you're going to run this before you run your end of year, which some customers do, I would say hard copy yes, print it to a file, and place an X in front of absolutely every single field. And then you can, or excuse me, file option, and then you can run it and check your integrity checks before you run your end of year, just to clean everything up, kind of spring cleaning, if you will. So I'm going to put an X in front of any of the files that I want to check. I'm going to press the home key, and then my options down here are to escape to get out, press my return or my enter key to start. F5 will let me select a particular file, so if I want to type something in, press my enter key, it's going to take me right there, and I'm going to then put an X in front of it. I'm going to press my home key to get back to the bottom. F10 will save all of these X's where they go. So if someone runs your integrity checks and you want them to run specific checks on a regular basis, you can either schedule this to run so that that person wouldn't have to do anything, or if you want to manually do it, you can save it so that you don't have X's on every single file. Up arrow will change or will allow you to get back into the screen so you can adjust your selections. And then on the far right, my Control X to change will allow me to print to a different printer. So if I wanted to print to my file printer, I Control X, I choose my file printer, press my enter key, and then when this prints, it's going to print to a file in my user data. In that case, it doesn't matter if every one of my million parts has an integrity error on it because I'm just printing to a file. I'm going to press the enter key to start this. And as I said, this doesn't interrupt anything that anybody else is doing. So I can run this during the day. It's not going to slow anything down. It's not going to stop anybody from doing anything. So first, my ARF record, I only have about 10 accounts in there. So occasionally it would take slightly longer to run those integrity checks than what you just saw here. But in most cases, it doesn't take very long to run these. The big ones are your part tracking by account, your TAF-H and TAF-D, TAF-H and TAF-D files, those are your archives, and your inventory, depending on how many parts you have in your inventory. Things like transaction history, THF, might take a while as well. So my ARF is coming back and telling me that I don't have any errors in test 1, 2, 3, or 4, which is good. My next tests are saying that there's no reason for, there's no test that took place for test number 3 because I'm not accessing data that way. So it's an unnecessary test. So the NR is a good thing. That means that it just ignored that test completely. It was unnecessary. And then the rest of my test responses are 0, which is good. This is what I want to see. Okay, now in the scenario where you have numbers in the tests, let me go through what you would do in each of those cases. So if you have errors in your test number 4, that's the first one that you want to fix. To fix errors in test 4, I'm going to hit my escape key. I'm going to go back into my integrity checks, and I'm going to space out the X's in front of test 1 and 2 and 3. I'm going to put an F for fix in test 4, and I'm going to Control W, put an X in front of the test or tests that I need to rerun to fix. I'm going to come up and change my hard copy to a no. Press my home key and press my enter key. It's going to say not run, not run, not run to my test 1, 2, and 3, which is good. And then test 4 will come back with the number of errors that you originally had because it's reporting to you what was adjusted and then what was fixed. I typically come in here one more time. I leave an X on my test 4. I run my test one more time, and I confirm that my test 4 now has 0 errors. You don't necessarily have to do that, but if you want to, you can. Okay. So now I need to come back in. I could have done this all with that last step that I did, but I'm doing this separately just so you can see the steps. I'm going to place an X in front of all 4 of my tests, and I'm going to go back in and run the check for the file that was originally in error in test 4. Now whether I had errors, actually I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to change my hard copy to a no. I could save that also so I didn't have to keep doing this. So the reason that I'm doing this is, number 1, if you had errors in test 1 or 2 or 3, then you know that you have errors that you need to fix. Occasionally, if you had an error in test 4, when you fixed it, it will throw an error into test 1, 2, or 3. So you want to run it again to make sure that it didn't create new errors. Okay, so test 1 and test 2 are looking to make sure that you have a DAT and a key for every part in your inventory if I'm looking for inventory, or for every account in my AR, and so on. Basically what that is 2 puzzle pieces. The DAT is your data and the key is the identifier of the record. When you are dealing with your inventory or with your AR, each record, meaning each account or each part in your system, has to have this DAT part and this key part, and they fit together like a puzzle and all is well. If you are missing one of those DAT records but you have a key out there, or you're missing one of the key records and you have a DAT out there, you're going to get errors in test 1 or test 2. What we do to fix that is we do an SBCLink. I'm going to press my escape key, and to do an SBCLink, you need to kick everybody out of the file that you're using. Now, that's a little bit more complicated than it sounds, because if you are editing or if you're running an SBCLink on inventory, you're going to need to kick everybody out of inventory, but you also need to kick them out of your processing files. So that's your A4 process batch. It's probably your X7A internet processing batch if you get internet orders. So there's more involved than simply kicking everybody out of inventory. You do want to do SBC links when people are off the system in most cases. So you do it first thing in the morning, you do it last thing at night. And we can help you with that. So if you're doing an SBC link, give us a call. But the idea behind doing an SBC link is I come into this menu selection. It looks very similar to the page I was on before. Batch process is up to you. Hard copy, probably not necessary. And then stores to create, which store are you dealing with. I'm going to put an X in front of my ARF. I'm going to take the X out of my DPH and DPD, whoops, because they're unnecessary. I'm going to press my home key, and I'm going to press my enter key. So, in the case that I try to run this in the middle of the day, don't fear If the file is already open, it's not going to let you do anything, so you're not going to screw anything up. File is already open, which basically means we don't care what you were trying to do, we're not going to let you do it. I'm going to press the escape key, and I'm going to go and do whatever I need to do, whether it's waiting until the end of the day so that everybody's out of the file, or kick everybody off the system. So after I have done an SBCLink and I have cleaned up the file, there is a separate video on how to run an SBCLink, where to look to kick people out of things if you need to kick people out of files and so on, or call SBC for assistance. I'm going to go back into my integrity checks, and I'm going to check to make sure that my test 1 and test 2 results are 0. So I can space out test 3 and test 4, Control W, put an X in front of ARF. I'm going to leave the hard copy as a C in the upper right corner this time so you can see what that looks like. So I press my home key and I press my enter key, and it's going to come back total number of errors encountered were a 0. Like I said, this may be the easier way for you to do it if you're going to run it to your screen, but then you're going to go to lunch and come back because you've run an integrity test over either your very large inventory, your very large part tracking by account file, or all of your files in your system. I'm going to press the escape key. Okay, the last integrity check that I have is number 3, and this is my data file into record pointers. So as I was discussing earlier, when I go into inventory and I pull up a part, I want to be able to press F1 to go backwards, F2 to move forwards, and I want to see the same parts. I'm going through the same portion of that necklace chain, moving forward and backwards. If I move forward to one record and then I move backwards to a different record, then my data inner record pointers are bad. So to fix that item, I am going to go into my resort a block of records. This is located in a couple of places. The easiest place to get it is in G, my resort a block of records. So my menu selection there would be Y, 9, and then G. So I go into this menu and I am going to pick the file I'm going to resort. I'm going to resort my AR. I'm going to press my enter key, put in my clerk code. Now this screen is still old school screen, but it works just as well as the rest of them. I'm assuming that this will be GUI'd very soon. Do I want to run this through my batch? Yes or no? I don't like to run it through my batch because I like to watch what's happening and make sure that it looks good. If you don't want to do this through the foreground, you don't have to. Are you going to run it sequentially or by pointers? So if I'm running this sequentially, I have a sequence that I particularly want to use. So I'm going to choose an S sequence. It is going to sort the entire inventory, and this is what we'd use 90% of the time to run these, because we want it to go sequentially by whatever sort fields that you use. Now the one drawback to this is that if I want to sort my inventory, I have to sort my whole inventory and not just a particular line. So what do I want to sort this by? I'm going to sort this by my account number field. Now because that's completely obvious, I don't have to put anything in my sort field here. If I wanted to sort this by the account name, I would type in the account name field, and it's going to sort it dependent on the alpha field information that's in my account name field and not so much my account number. I'm going to space this out. So for my case, I'm going to put A/N here, but you can sort on any field that you want to in your inventory, in your AR. Really, the sky's the limit. You can sort it by anything. Do I want to sort it? And then I have 2 extra bys because I can sort it by manufacturer and by part number, and then perhaps by zone or bin if I wanted to do that for my inventory. Do I want to sort it ascending or descending? I don't know why you would sort it in descending order, but maybe you have a reason. So if you look in most of our customer systems, this is set to an ascending. That's A to Z, 1 to 9. So if you have a reason to do it in descending, please go right ahead and change that. And then do I want to use the alphanumeric algorithm for account number sort? This basically means, do I want to count like a human or do I want to count like a computer? Computers count 1, 10, 100, 2, 20, 200. You've probably seen this in places. This alphanumeric algorithm changes it so that it counts like a human. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is almost always set to a Y. If you want to leave it so that it sorts 1, 10, 100, have at it. Just leave that as a no. Now, once I press the enter key, you'll notice that it says ensure that integrity tests 1 and 2 have 0 errors. That's why I'm doing this in this order. So I fix 4, I fix 1 and 2, and then if I need to resort, if my sort order is incorrect and I'm getting errors in test 3, this is how I fix this. I'm going to press the return key. It's going to go and sort, and it's going to throw me back to here and say completed. Please run integrity check number 3. Last time I go out to my integrity checks, I always leave all 4 checked. It takes another minute to check it, but it doesn't hurt anybody. I'm going to press my home key, Control W, put an X in front of the file I want to check, home, and enter. And I want to see total number of errors encountered 0, or I want to see that right there with a bunch of zeros on it. So if I have a bunch of zeros, I can let everybody back in on the system. Whatever my situation is fixed, and I don't have a problem. Now, most of the time, you're able to do all of this yourself, and we don't come across problems. That doesn't happen 100% of the time, but I would say 95% of the time, if you run and you fix your integrity errors, you had to go through those few steps, and you're good to go. So I'm going to stop this video here. If you have any questions, please call SBC at 800-829-4722 or send us an email at sbctraining@autolog.com. As I mentioned, we are happy to do this for you, but we have a lot of customers who want to be self-sufficient, want to do things at night or on the weekends. So these videos are to help you and learn how to do some of these processes yourself. And please call us if you have any problems. Thank you so much for your time.